Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a solemn and at the same time a very, very pleasurable moment every year for us to assemble on the 25th January regularly and also give awards to really highly talented and highly dedicated and what I can say people who are interested in society. At the same time, we have been organizing talks, and this particular Malathi memorial lecture is in memory of my wife Malathi Venkatesan. I would like to say a couple of words before I proceed to what I can say introduce Mr. Lourd Vijay to the audience. Malathi was a very ordinary person with extraordinary capacity to serve the patients actually. She had a kidney disease in what I would say that in 1992 or 93, and then she had a transplant under Georgie Abraham in 95, and this kidney served her for almost 18 years, and she used to be one of the founder trustees of TANKER Foundation, having known this the implications of the disease, and she was so dedicated to the patients. And when the kidney failed in 2013 or 12 at around that time, and 3 years she had a tremendous amount of problems and difficulties, and we had death-like experiences. 3 years she survived. She passed away in 2015 November. So this talk has been organized in memory of her, and basically her capacity to understand and meet and know every patient individually, even till the last date. Even after her dialysis, she will go to our Ambattur unit and meet all the patients and also inquire about their welfare, their personal problems, and their children's education, etc. Therefore, this is in memory of not only of her spirit to what I can say, back to life. And at the same time continue to what I can say, inspire people around her, the family members and the people in that organization, people what I can the society, the patients, and that is her spirit. And therefore it is very, very appropriate. We have Mr. Lourd Vijay here. And Lourd Vijay again, I find from his background an extraordinary person. He is an international salsa dancer, a Guinness World Record holder, cultural ambassador to South Africa, who has created a Latin dance revolution by bringing salsa to India, now working on creating a new revolution of saving lives through spreading hope foundation. And he himself was a kidney patient, had a transplant. Let us understand. And he did a rally from Bangalore to Ladakh to promote organ donation awareness. And he has won several national awards and several international awards. And not only that, he has kept himself so busy in spreading this awareness about the disease and also about the organ donation is something very remarkable. Therefore, I see some similarity between what my wife was doing and what you are doing on a much grander and much bigger scale actually, And we wish you all the best. We would like to hear from him personally as to how to, what I can say, continue to have the spirit of back to life. And see all these disease and suffering at some time, it comes to us to what I would say to kindle and rouse some of the spirit which lie dormant in us, so that what we can say, it can be beneficial to society. See, I did not know in 20 years ago, in the early 90s, my wife was affected with the disease. And it brought out a new personality of her and also a homemaker for her to what I can say, go and serve is something remarkable. Same thing we find in him. And he continues to be what I can say, he has acted, he has done what I can say in films, and he has promoted the shows, and he has worked with several leading directors of the Tamil and also other, what I can say, these Indian directors. Therefore, what I find is actually this is something very inspiring for all of us actually. Therefore, I am so happy in introducing him and also request him to take the dais and address the audience.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatesan. We just, before Mr. Lourd Vijay speaks to us, I request Mrs. Rajalakshmi Ravi, Advisory Member and Head of TANKER Awareness Prevention Program, to please felicitate Mr. Vijay with a bouquet of flowers. Sir, we are greatly honored that you are here today to present Mrs. Malathi Venkatesan TANKER Foundation Memorial Lecture, Spreading Hope Before and After Transplant. Mr. Lourd Vijay, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for that. Good evening and welcome to the very, very important and prestigious event by the TANKER Foundation. Before we start, I think there's some statistics that I would like to share with you. 15 lakh people in the country are in need of an organ, and over 100 million people suffer from kidney disease in our country. And nearly 10 million people are in the 5th stages of kidney disease, and nearly about 5 lakh people pass away due to the lack of organs in our country. All these statistics and numbers spell sadness, grief, bringing a lot of tragedy along with a great deal of loss. I know what an uphill climb it is for anyone dealing with a debilitating disease. It's also for family and friends who are involved with these people who are dealing with a disease that they go through stress as well. But I'm not here to talk about the sadness and negativity that the disease brings. I'm here to share the thought and experience of hope, triumph, positivity of the human spirit. The human spirit that is so intrinsically and instinctively, spiritually and genetically designed and engineered to cope with stress and distress. The human spirit is about beating all odds, hurdles and anomalies. It is an inherent need to win and succeed. A very warm welcome to the chief guest, friends and supporters of TANKER. And thank you, Ms. Lata Kumarasamy, to have me be a speaker at this very, very important event. The 26th Annual Charity Awards Night of the TANKER Foundation. This is a very important event and I'm glad I could make it. Thank you very much once again. So I'm going to pose a very important question to all of you. I just told you about how sad disease is, right? So I want to ask you a question on what can be positive about a disease like chronic kidney disease. Anybody who can answer this question for me, please? Any answers? What can be positive about chronic kidney disease? Yes, of course. That's a very, because I took it for granted, so. Anybody else? Very true. Right, very true. So for me, one important thing, like ma'am said, was getting to know about the kidney. We always think the heart and the brain is a very, very important organ, right? But kidney, I think, is by far the most important organ because it performs nearly 12 important functions. Filtration is not just one function, it also controls hormonal balance, body balance, and a few other important functions. So anyway, many of you gave some very, very important answers. So I've got to share what I found positive about the disease. So the 4 things that I kind of realized through the whole process was CKD to me was a universe's way of telling me to stop taking life for granted. And the second important thing was to slow down. The third important thing was to take a lot of rest. And the fourth thing was things could have been worse. Chronic kidney disease is not the be-all, end-all. Things could have been worse. So I'm going to just break this and explain each of these 4 points. And that's what this talk is all about for me. So stop taking life for granted. At a more basic level, CKD made me realize the value of significant things that we take so much for granted. Something as simple as drinking a glass of water. So when you are thirsty, you won't just gulp it down. But then when you're going through this whole disease, you're made to drink hot water, 50 ml a day, which is rationed out, because you also have other lentils that you need to take. So whenever you're looking at a cold drink or a cold glass of water, that's something that you don't have the liberty to consume. So that's one important thing that life made me realize. Second important thing is, we South Indians like our flavor and our spices, right? And then you are forced to eat bland, saltless food. And for us, even if we reduce a little bit, a pinch of salt, the food tastes insipid and not fit to consume. And then you start worshipping that small pinch of salt as well. And then the most important thing is the air we breathe. Obviously, you're going through a lot of breathlessness all night. And every night is a battle that you mentally prepare for, because you've got to stay upright. If you lie down, you can't breathe. So you've got to sit upright the whole night, which again is a big process by itself. So that's another thing that you do not take for granted. And then the fourth important thing is your family, friends, siblings, and you know what, you start valuing every relationship, you make time for them, because they're the ones who are there with you during this entire journey. And then the second point was about slowing down. So my introduction was all about my dancing career. I was luckily an achiever in the dance scene. For one reason, that the field that I am in, salsa and Latin dancing, it's a very, very new field industry in the country. When I brought the dance form to India in 97, 98, nobody had even heard of the word salsa. For them, salsa meant sauce, a hot sauce that you get in Latin America. So when the ads or the papers spoke about salsa, I would get calls saying, is this a cooking class, not a dance class? So that's how it started off. So luckily, I was teaching and traveling the world. I was armed with a Guinness World Record, and I had a lot of accolades that I had won, my team had won. I was the judge of the Asia Open and the Asia Pacific Salsa Championships. So that took me around different parts of the world to perform and to teach. So that actually took a beating with my health. Though I was dancing physically, but I wasn't physically fit and healthy. I mean, when you talk about physical health, it doesn't mean your musculature and your look of the body. It also means the intrinsic part of your body and how your metabolism and your other physiological functions perform. So that was one big thing about why I had to slow down. I was all over the place. I was trying to do multiple events, being at 2-3 events at the same time. That was something I shouldn't be doing, but that was the universe's way to tell me to slow down, which I just did. And then the third important thing was to take rest. CKD made me take a lot of rest, get disciplined, made me catch up on life. I made time to read. It made me do a lot of things that I had pushed out for many, many years. I thought I was in a physically taxing profession, but I wasn't fit and healthy, so I made a pact to start living a more healthy life, eat on time, sleep on time. And then a very, very good way to deal with the whole process of chronic kidney disease for me was to learn a new skill every week. So I attended various workshops and did a lot of online courses in carpentry, welding, social media marketing, video editing, and a few other courses. And the idea was not to master them, was to have an idea of what they could be. And at least it keeps your mind engaged. If you didn't keep your mind engaged, obviously, like they always say, an idle mind is a devil's workshop, right? So this was the best way to keep you engaged. And the good thing is, obviously, you don't have to be dependent on people for things. This one kind of keeps you busy and keeps you self-sufficient to a large extent. So I tried to lead a very normal life. I did not desist from work or schedules. I caught up with a lot of friends, caught up with a lot of reading, and also made a fair share of travel. I traveled to cities close by, towns close by, whichever was accessible. The important part or decision on which my travel was based on was purely because I had to come back for dialysis. So I couldn't travel to places far off because I had to go to dialysis every alternate day. And then the fourth part, things could have been worse. I mean, if I was going through chronic kidney disease, I knew of people who were going through other bigger issues, which are mentally and physically a lot more traumatizing. Luckily, I didn't have to deal with excruciating pain 24/7. It was just when the needles were being pricked while dialysis and a few other issues here and there. But then imagine if with all this, if you had pain to deal with, then obviously it would have been a lot more suffering than what we went through. So my tryst with chronic kidney disease started off on 1st November 2013. Though I had vaguely heard of the word dialysis, but I never knew what it was, like how kidney function and kidney. Dialysis was a word you heard in college when you did your Bachelor's of Environmental Sciences, so I studied. But then it just came and went. And then little did I realize that they're going to be shoving down a catheter through my throat, making a hole here. And then I started off dialysis from the next day onwards. And then I had to go through a first attempt of a failed fistula surgery, which unfortunately didn't succeed because they couldn't find a vein. And then they did another one, and then that became the entire preparation for a long, arduous journey of 2.5 years to deal with dialysis. So here's my story. It was 2013, and I just bought a brand new luxury car. So I took my parents on a long road trip. So I thought, let me just drive down from Bangalore all the way to the tip of Kerala, Varkala, and took a trip through Coorg. So we did a nice road trip of 10 days, and then I did a hurried return of driving back to Bangalore within 1 day. So I just thought probably that the body was taking a beating and it was tired, but it was 2 weeks after the drive, my body didn't recover. And by the time I could actually get myself to a physician, I'd fallen sick. I had fallen sick with a lot of chills, met my doctor, and the doctor could not figure out what was wrong. So there were a lot of medications, tests done, but unfortunately the fever didn't come down for nearly 2 days. And then on the third day, I was again called back for a test, and then recalled for the same test again. And in the evening, I was called by my physician and said, please go to the hospital and get admitted. And I was like, I felt normal, a little tired, but I said, no, doctor, I'll go tomorrow. He said, no, nothing doing, just go right now. And when we went to the hospital, they did another test, and supposedly my creatinine was 14.5. So that was, again, it didn't hit me then, it hit me the next day when the catheter was shoved down my throat. So I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease and hypertension at the same time. The doctors couldn't figure out what triggered what. And the possibility of a biopsy was ruled out because of bleeding. So that's how my adventure with chronic kidney disease began. So to cut a long story short, 4 hours of dialysis 3 times a week, a strict diet, huge quantities of medicines that seemed like a meal by itself, long waits, multiple visits to hospitals, umpteen number of tests, injections, procedures, sleepless nights due to breathlessness, and to top it all, my medical insurance had expired a few weeks prior to being diagnosed with CKD. So I had to use up all my savings and, of course, a lot of help from friends and family. But I was going through all this physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. There was just one thing I would think of. It was being positive and getting over this as soon as possible and getting back to this wonderful adventure called life. My perception of life has changed. I just shared the 4 points on what has changed. During my day of dialysis, I was exposed to a completely different new world, especially in the hospital. So I met a lot of people who couldn't afford dialysis. I'll see them for the first, like a Monday of the week, and then I wouldn't see them the next week. I would wonder how they would manage. I thought their creatinine levels was not so high, so they were advised to come once a week, but they were supposed to be doing dialysis three times a week. So I would just wonder why wouldn't they come in, and then I realized that they didn't have the money to come in for dialysis. Then there's another family that would take a train from Nellore to Bangalore for 8 years back and forth. Every night they would be in a train, come to Bangalore, do dialysis, and take the train back, and again the following night come back. So this has been happening for 8 years. And then a few others who didn't want to go through a transplant and live a normal life because they didn't have the funds to do so. So having dealt and experienced with all these situations firsthand, I knew I had some unfinished business, and there was something that I had to do about this situation in particular. So I started the Spreading Hope Foundation in 2017, that is the year before last. And our first ever project was to spread awareness. So we decided on driving from Chennai to Bangalore via Ladakh. So we covered nearly about 9 cities, 17 towns, and about 85 villages over a 40-day period, covering nearly 10,000 kilometers, which was a very, very important and a very fruitful drive, because a lot of things got done. We had a lot of interactions, partnerships with the foundation like TANKER Foundation, Moon Foundation, the ZCK, Noto. Had a lot of dialogue with a lot of people across the country to understand what the situation of organ donation awareness is in the country. So from that drive, a lot of learnings emerged, and now we have planned a lot of actions over the next 5 years that we want to implement in the next for our state and hopefully across the country. Sorry. So our primary objective is to place transplant counselors and spread awareness in schools and corporates. We're starting off with Bangalore, and over time we want to spread out across the country. So I basically dealt with kidney disease for 2.5 years. And my only way to move on was to be optimistic and look at the brighter side of life. And so now 2.5 years hence and 3 years now I've had the transplant. And this entire thing happened because of the state-run committee called the Zonal Coordination Committee of Karnataka, now called the Jiva Sarthakate. And they're the ones who actually put the entire system for a donor wait listed program in the state. And obviously Tamil Nadu is one of the pioneers in the entire system of setting up organ donation committees for the country itself. So now after the surgery in isolation for 12 days and 6 months of rest, I have bounced back. I'm back to dancing, and I'm back to teaching and traveling, but a lot more conscious, a lot more disciplined, and a lot of reverence to life. I try and get a lot of me time and try to be available for everyone who needs me. Luckily nowadays people know who I am, and I've been in the industry, in the field for a long time. So if anybody has any issue with forget kidney disease, then they just give them my number and they call me up, and I at least have the good fortune to talk and share my experiences. Because the first thing that anybody who's diagnosed with kidney disease suddenly goes through a certain sort of trauma, an instant trauma. So somebody needs to talk to them and kind of comfort them, saying it's not the end of life. It can be dealt with. There is a way to deal with it. So just stay calm and things will fall in place. So in a way, I feel lucky that I have that opportunity to to teach or to share my experience with people. And this is what I have been doing for the past 3 years. I've traveled to interesting destinations like Cuba, Philippines, Arunachal Pradesh, and I went back to hosting events. Like tomorrow and day after, we're hosting the qualifying rounds for the Dance World Cup. And I couldn't miss this event for that. So I came and I fly back tonight. Thank you once again for having me over, ma'am. It's been a pleasure. I'm not done as yet, sorry. So anyway, my 2 bits for people who are dealing with this disease. or actually this is something which should hold good for anybody. Listen to your body. Listen to all the signs and symptoms your body is showing you. Being a dancer, ardent traveler, and a foodie, I probably ignored all the small symptoms, assuming I was tired or due to lack of sleep. So I learned this the hard way. Never ignore what your body is trying to communicate to you. Any symptom, however small or minute, is a sign to visit a doctor and get yourself checked. Your body is a temple and treat it like one and worship it. Good health is a luxury. And I'm not asking you to stop or to quit smoking, drinking, but do everything in moderation because too much of the best things are also bad for you. It's always good to get a second opinion. And all my life, I've always harped that my epitaph would read, I've done it all and I did it my way. But the fact that I would actually live again to tell my story is the biggest miracle of all. So again, ending my talk, if you know of anyone who's going through CKD and would like to talk to me, please pass on my email. My email is lourdvijay@gmail.com if you remember that. If you don't, find me on social media, I'll be there. If anybody wants to talk to me, I'll be more than happy to share my experience. My last words for now would be aware and listen to your body always and live every day like it's your last. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yes, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
So are you able to dance as fast as you were doing earlier?
I can still dance as fast, but not as long, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, instead of dancing the entire song, I cut the song to half of what it generally is. So that's how I go about doing it.
So you'll do our next fundraising program.
I'll be happy to, for sure. Any other questions? Yes, there's a question there. Oh, God. Pardon, sorry? Oh, God. That's the whole problem of getting a dancer to talk. Okay, I should. But do we have an aux cable here? Aux?
Me gustas tanto que si la luna fuera mía te la diera. Me gustas mucho y me alegra que lo sepas. Me gustas tanto. Hay en tus ojos siempre un gesto de alegría. Es tu sonrisa como un sol de mediodía. Es que mis manos desean tocarte y ya no aguantan más. Es que mi cuerpo desea sentirte y ya no aguanto más. Me gustas tanto que doy hasta lo que no tengo. Ser el dueño de tus besos.
That wasn't prepared at all. Sorry about that. Next time I shall come prepared. Thank you. Yes, please. Sure. Thank you, thank you.
Big amount of self-pity and, I want to give up. I want to, I don't want to go through this. I mean, my family knows. I mean, even for a small headache, I sometimes do that. Just want to know what, how did you, at any point did you feel that you wanted to give up? You don't want to go through this? I mean...
No, like I just said, right? Things could always be worse. Things could have always been worse. Like when I had to go to hospital every alternate day. And the good thing is I used to drive myself and drive myself out. On the beds next to me, I would see much older people who probably, I was even wondering how they even lie down because they're so weak and feeble. And going through a 4-hour process of dialysis was probably a very excruciating and tiring process for them. So when I would see them, I would feel a little more relaxed. So I think the whole takeaway is, when you see suffering around, I'm sure everybody has something better off compared to somebody else. There's no point complaining, right? So you make do what you have. That's it. Thank you. Anything else? Any more questions, please? Sure. Pardon, sorry, I didn't hear that. Actually, I'm more confident now. Before, I had to be worried about what the world will say, but right now I have nothing to prove to anybody. So before, like I said, once you reach a certain stage in life, you've got to be perfect about everything you do. But right now, I don't think I need to be that. So yeah. Right? You feel sad for what? Sad for what? Oh, to me? Oh. I don't look sad at all. I'm happy that I went through it. Like I said, for me, those 4 things, it hit me like a thunderbolt. Because I was trying to do so much in life. I wanted to grow and become rich and famous, what everybody's dream is, at least in our industry. But this is the way to slow down, because I don't think anything or anybody could slow me down, barring something like this. And because even if I had a headache, I was sick, I would just trudge along and move along. So I think it was God's way to tell me to tie me down and put me somewhere down there to make me take a relook at life. So luckily for me right now, okay, even before I was never into things like drinking and smoking. But now it's, even if people are around me, I would try and avoid contact. So a lot more discipline in terms of, I'm not saying I'm a strict disciplinarian, but try and do everything as per a certain level of discipline. Try to wake up as early as possible, do yoga. Initially it was all about trying to be physically fit, but now it's also about feeding yourself mentally and emotionally as well. And a lot of things, my diet has changed a lot. Like in the last 1 month, it's purely vegetables, a lot of soup. So these are all very personal things that depends on you. You got to figure out what works for you and what you want to do for yourself. And for me, I've been trying so many different kinds of lifestyles in terms of food and the things that I consume, what I do in terms of work. So right now I know I don't want to do this. I'm very choosy about the work I do as well. So yeah, that's what you want to figure out for yourself.
Views expressed by Swami, you literally gave that excellence in explicitly expressing medicine plus love is Medicare. You have proved in every point of yours. Medicine without love is medicine.
True.
You have really proved it. I think you gave the hope and love to all of us here.
Thank you.
It is the touch of a class of a person to a class of people by a class of your act. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Mr. Vijay, I have one last question.
Sure.
What did you take away from your the trip that you made from the south to the north? Did you meet? Where you met with a little bit of opposition, a little bit of questioning, little bit of what was your take?
I'm glad you asked me this question. Very importantly, right from the Marina Beach all the way to Nubra Valley and to Pangong So, everybody is aware of the concept of organ donation, but they don't know how to go about doing it. So I wish, even though NGOs like ours are doing work, but I think the government has to speed up the process and create more facilities, centers to get people to get their registrations done or pledging done. And having said that, out of more than 10,000 people we met, hardly 2 people had reservations against organ donation. And that is not the kid himself. It was his thing like, oh, my parents won't allow me to do so. And it was just in the northern Karnataka belt, not anywhere else in the country. And he was like, no, my religion won't let me do it. So just 2 people out of the 10,000 odd people we met. So that's the only thing. And another very important thing was when I started the foundation, I was a little blind myself. I should accept that. Because when you go onto the internet and try and research on foundations and NGOs working in this space, there are hardly about 6 or 7 names that pop up. But through the entire drive, I realized there's so many foundations working across the country. A city like Bombay itself has over 33 NGOs working purely in this space. And many of them are single men entities, single people entity. And many of them I met actually go door to door across Maharashtra and talk to people about organ donation. They actually dedicated their entire life to it, to the cause, and they actually do this on a daily basis without any expectation, without any remuneration, nothing. So that's how involved people are with the cause. And this is what I said, this is my learning, and I just thought, and so many people are doing so many things, and I just think the government must pull in resources and facilitate a bigger play for the entire country in terms of this big issue itself. Yeah. Thank you.